Now children, first we will see how we can preserve oral sources of history. See um, the paragraph 9.1. Each step, like collecting and sources of history, creating the records and indexes, exhibiting manuscripts, old books and artifacts after completing necessary treatment, requires very careful handling and management. It needs people with specific skills. Only trained person who are duly qualified can take up these tasks. Understood? So children, it is very important that the trained or qualified person can only handle these sources of history, because the steps are very important. How we are supposed to collect those things, how records should be created, how records should be maintained, how those manuscript, you know what is manuscripts, how to exhibit those manuscripts, how old book can be preserved, how artifacts can be preserved. So these require necessary treatment. Understood? Which is where which need very careful handling. Unless we are not very careful, we cannot preserve those things. Understood? So it needs people with specific skills. Common people cannot do all these things. We need to have a specific training. Understood? So specific skills are required. The first we will see about oral sources of history. The first point, how we can conserve and preserve oral sources of history. First, collecting and compiling of folk songs and folk tales. Understood? Second, classifying, analyzing and interpreting the compiled materials. Third, publishing the results of respective research. Children, collecting and compiling of folk songs and folk tales. See children, both need to be uh, preserved for future generation. Why we need to preserve those oral sources of history? Because we need to preserve for the future generation. Understood? So that is very important. Classifying, analyzing and interpreting the compiled material according to region. Children, how we can classify, the how historian can classify the oral sources, because we are having so many different regions are there, and according to region, according to various regions of our country, the oral sources are also driven. Take the example of Maharashtra. If you go to Vidarbha region, if you go to Konkan region, if you go to Marathwada region, their oral folk songs, folk tales, the language, the script is different. Understood? So the historians or the person who is going to preserve those oral resources, he should classify those oral resources according to the region. Understood? According to the region, he is supposed to classify those things. Analyzing and interpreting, that means he is supposed to interpret about those things. He is able to know, whenever he is asked any question regarding those oral sources, he is able to answer that question. Understood? So that deep research is required. So specific skills or training is necessary to conserve oral sources of history. Understood? So that is very important. Publishing the result of respective research. Then the person who is going to conserve and preserve, he is supposed to show or verify the result by publishing those things. Whatever he has done, he is supposed to publish those things. Understood? In specific journal, in specific documents are published that this type of oral sources are reserved in a particular library, particular museum, or there any historians whosoever interested can take reference to that oral sources of history. Understood? So that is very important. So this is the steps to conserve and preserve oral sources of history. Now see children, necessary training, whatever the training which is required for the oral source of history: sociology and anthropology, social psychology, mythology and linguistics, library science and information technology, history and historical research method, writing of research reports and articles. So children, this is very important. These are these various subjects: sociology and anthropology. Sociology, the study of society; anthropology, the origin of human beings. So this is very important. While preserving oral source of history, this type of training, that the person should have the knowledge of sociology, should have the knowledge of anthropology, so that he can interpret, he can analyze those sources of history, oral sources of history. Second, social psychology, psychology of the that people or a group of the region, of the people of that region, he should have that knowledge of psychology, that what type of people, what type of thinking was there, how the people they used to lead their life. The social psychology is very important. Mythology and linguistic. Mythology, the tales or the stories or we can say information regarding various god and goddesses. Linguistic, related to language. Library science, that is very important, that is the foremost importance important point, library science. Information technology. So children, information technology means IT, that means with the help of we can say computers, information technology. See children, it is very important to keep a record. Before, when computers were not there, when information technology was not developed, manually things was done, manual records were done. Now everything is under uh, everything is computerized, so many records can be kept at a time, and where it is kept, in which section it is there. So it will be easy whenever any researcher or any historian wants to have those books, he can directly open from computer and have. So that is very important. You can take example in our school also, library, Neha madam, he is keeping she is keeping all those records for each and every class. She is having uh, A section, B section, C section, and about every student, what type of, how many books he or she has taken. So this type of record, and which book is there in which section, in which part of the library, in which we can say rack, cupboard. So everything is there according to the class and section. So this type of record is also maintained in various libraries and museums. Understood? So next is history and historical research method. Writing of research reports and article. So this is very important. History and historical research method. So the person who is doing this type of work, that conserving and preserving, he should have the knowledge of history and historical research method. What type of research method should be adopted while doing while conserving this oral resources. Understood? So that is very important. And lastly, to publish the findings. What type of findings he or she has done, and what analyze or what conclusion she or he has done, has find his findings is to be published. That is very important, so that the public will have the knowledge, the authorities should have knowledge that what type of research has been done to preserve and conserve oral sources of history. Understood?